Hello! Typically, I would be showing a toy right now because, well, that's all I am, is a toy gremlin, a little action figure rat scurrying about. But I did recently get 2,000 followers on TikTok, and I thought instead of doing a toy tour room or anything like that, I'd rather do something bold and exciting and ambitious, and something to capitalize on the eternal popularity of Pokemon and the yearly popularity of wrestling by combining two of my passions, giving you 100 wrestlers with 100 Pokemon. And yes, I am fully aware this is unlike anything I've ever made before. Yes, I'm fully aware this is unbelievably niche. It's probably gonna bomb. I'm almost banking on it bombing. But hey, why has it ever stopped me before? I did a whole series on slug zombie figures. They did awfully, but that's not the point of this. This is a thank you for the 2,000 people who followed me, even though now we're closer to 2,500 because I procrastinate. It's one of my worst habits. Well, that and the binge drinking. Now let's set a few ground rules here. After all, we're not bloody savages. This isn't Florida. This isn't my 100 favorite Pokemon. These aren't my 100 favorite wrestlers. They're not grouped in any particular order. It's literally exactly what it says on the tin. It's 100 wrestlers and 100 Pokemon that could conceivably partner with those wrestlers. If your favorite's not on here, I'm sorry. I'm only human. I'm trying my best. We're going to be using mostly still photos, and also I'll just take videos of my actual toys, like this, because remember, I am a toy channel. Alright, if we're going to get through 100 of these things, we gotta start pretty big, and there's nothing bigger than Hulk Hogan. The guy's the Babe Ruth of wrestling, you gotta give him that. He is the face of the WWE, and possibly pro wrestling as a whole. And sure, he's a bit of a racist scumbag, but, you know. That said, if there's a Pokemon that syncs up with Hulk Hogan, it kinda has to be Charizard. And, I could be cynical and say like, oh, they're overexposed, oh, they're not as good as their popularity would imply, but let's just be real here. Charizard and Hulk Hogan fit a similar niche within their respective franchises. They have a huge mainstream of nostalgia that touches each and every fan of those franchises, and their popularity extends past those franchises. There's a case to be made that Hulk Hogan is more popular than pro wrestling, just like you can make a case that at a point Charizard might have been more popular than Pokemon. For all those reasons alone, I think they would make perfect partners for each other, as well as the fact that they're both orange. And number two, I think we should go with someone who at one point was the second biggest star in the WWF, only behind Hogan, the Junkyard Dog. Now, if you're from Louisiana or the South, you'll definitely recognize this guy because he was one of the biggest stars Bill Watts ever made. And that's without getting the fact that, like I said, before Macho, before Ultimate Warrior, there was a time where Junkyard was the second biggest star in American pro wrestling. And a lot of that kind of comes back to a central theme of he is Dog. His name is Dog. He has collar, like Dog. His finishing move is Headbutt, where he gets on hands and knees and runs at you, like Dog. For all those reasons, it's kind of obvious he needs a dog Pokemon, but I think he needs someone who's a bit stockier, someone who's a bit, maybe, slower and bulkier than most Pokemon dogs. Give him Mastiff. The simple fact of the matter is, it'd be really weird to give him a thinner, more nimble dog. Junkyard Dog is a stocky guy. He's a burly guy. I think Mastiff fits his vibe perfectly. Yeah, 3's here just for me. Exotic Adrian Street's a super cool British wrestler. Basically, he just took the Gorgeous George thing, amped it way, way up. The whole gimmick is that he was super flamboyant, but he was actually like a monster in the ring. I like him. He's cool. Give him Sneasler. Like, the way I see it, both of these are absolute wrestling monsters, or, well, just outright monsters with Sneasler, who have some sense of vanity in their design. With Sneasler, you have the painted nails. With Exotic Adrian Street, you have every goddamn thing. I just think these two work together. It would be kind of a good pairing, even though you could make the case maybe Adrian Street should have an earlier generation Pokemon, but at the same time, Sneasler from Hisui, old wrestler, old Pokemon. Go with it. Alright, enough of these B-lister picks that are just here to make me happy. Randy Orton, legitimately the second biggest star in wrestling of like the past 20 years probably. I mean, there was a time where this guy had more collected championships than anyone else, even though he got beat out by Edge. Like, Randy Orton very clearly is meant to be one of the major faces of WWE history. He's the apex predator, the Viper. So why not just give him the Viper? I think Viper is the perfect pick for Randy Orton. Both are very dark in their appearances as well as in their intentions, and I also think that it's worth noting, even though they are both noted for their violence, they do have notable weak points. Orton suffers from a shoulder disorder, and Viper is hunted by Zangusas. Zagusai. Zangies? I don't know what the plural of that word is. Number 5 has the whole world in his hands. Look, I love Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt's just the best. I loved him as The Fiend. I actually don't know if I love him right now, but I definitely loved it back when he was a cult leader. And to me, that's what Bray Wyatt always should be, is that Louisiana swamp, like, cult leader, kind of creeping us all out as he's in that rocking chair. Basically, I'm just saying, give him Trevenant. Both of these characters feel like they come from the woods. They feel like they should be surrounded by bog and water and, I don't know, alligators. And it helps that Trevenant is legitimately a creepy Pokemon. He is a dead kid who is so outraged by the fact that his body was never found that he mutated into a tree and now he eats other children. That goes with a cult leader. Why not? Let them hang out and have ice cream. Of course, if we're going to be talking about the Wyatt family, I think we need to talk about a former member, Brody Lee. Brody Lee was like just one of my absolute favorite wrestlers. I adored Luke Harper, and in AEW he was the best thing about the company until his unfortunate demise. Brody Lee, as the leader of the Dark Order, kind of took the cult leader shtick started with Bray, took it in a completely different direction, instead being more of a corporate cult, but it still really worked. And I think that we need to go a similar route. Give Brody Lee someone who matches his energy, but if Bray is meant to be the swamp, I think Brody Lee really is meant to be the wild man turned corporate with his cult. Basically, I'm saying give him Berserker. Look, it's the best beard in Pokemon matched with the best beard in wrestling, and it helps that Brody Lee has major Giovanni vibes, so even though I wouldn't say give him a Persian, I think he needs someone from the Meowth line. Alright, number 7 is when we need to get serious again. Love him or hate him, Ric Flair is the man. He is the single greatest wrestler to ever live, and a bad Flair match is better than some performers' greatest moments. He is prestige, the gold standard of wrestling, the Rolex watch of any company he worked for. Fittingly, he should have a Pokemon that has consistently proved itself for decades to be an absolute legend. So, why not the original Dragon? Dragonite to me makes perfect sense for Flair. Both are superstars while not being overly insane with their look. And I feel like there is a parallel here to Hogan Charizard. Hogan and Charizard may be more popular, but both are utterly outclassed by Flair and Dragonite respectively. Besides, giving Flair a Dragonite made it easier to figure out Charlotte and Triple H later on, but we can get there when we get there. Hey loser, you like WWE? You want to know how the company got started? Well, it was on the shoulders of the living legend, Bruno Sammartino. Well, living legend when he was living. Anyway, the second WWE champion ever, Sammartino's reign stretched over 12 years. He played a former construction worker who had to earn every chance he got. And all of that was true. He was a construction worker who had to earn every chance in this country he got, including becoming a world champion. There's also the fact that Bruno was the champion of the New York territory. New York City, and specifically Madison Square Gardens, are synonymous with Bruno Sammartino. I think Conkeldurr is the perfect pick. It's a hard-working and humble Pokemon for a hard-working and humble man. Plus, there's the fact that Conkeldurr is based on carnies, based on people who would have built things like the Empire State Building and also tried to make a buck at the fair. It is a perfect match. Jeff Jarrett's such a dick. Here he is trying to sell you fake gold. Just give him Meowth. Why not? They both hate kids, they both scramble for any penny they can get, and I love them both for the scumbags they are. At number 10, we have Charlotte. Charlotte Flair has greatness in her veins. She's the daughter of Ric Flair, and when all is said and done, she may have left an even greater mark on wrestling than her father did. It's in that spirit of similar but unique that makes me think Charlotte would have Goodra, a Pokemon that seems less intimidating on the surface, but is an utter powerhouse that could rip anything apart. Goodra even kind of color coordinates with Charlotte, so I think I'm right here. At number 11, I think we need to talk about the man. Becky Lynch is amazing. With her energy and story, she's as close to punk rock as wrestling has ever come. And, oh, look at that, a punk rock Pokemon. And both could probably snap someone in half without even looking at them. Fancy that! Yeah, this is kind of an excuse just to give one of my favorite wrestlers a partnership with one of my favorite Pokemon, but screw you, it works. Oh, okay, Alexa Bliss. Grimmsnarl. Why not? Both started off as bubbly and cutesy, both became utter monsters. Both are still pretty cool. We are moving on. Look, man, Asuka is like my favorite wrestler, like currently active today. She exudes ferocity in everything she does, and her look is unlike any other performer in WWE. To me, her face paint and strength lends itself to Caparaja. Caparaja looks like paint has been dumped on it, and while not monstrous, definitely still exudes that type of power. I think for Asuka, you need a Pokemon that is great in battle, but doesn't look outright ghoulish, which is why I think, give her an elephant. Okay, number 14, Chris Jericho, Ampharos. I don't know why, Chris Jericho always just brings yellow to mind for me. It's probably the hair. And his more old school mentality makes him solid while not dangerously flashy. Kinda like Ampharos. Simple design, great stats, nothing that will break Pokemon as a medium, but enriches Pokemon by being in it for all this time. Sure, Jericho's a rock star, you could give him Obstagoon or Toxtricity, but I think his jack-of-all-trades skill set and versatility pushes him past the surface level comparison like that. Okay, number 15's easy. Tiger Mask is a legend, and you should definitely watch Tiger Mask matches, but it's Incineroar. Like, Incineroar is literally just based off Tiger Mask. That's all I need to go into. Yes, Hurricane! He was a literal superhero. Dude, just give him Palafin. He already looks like a rejected Aquaman sidekick. Let them go fight crime together. Okay, who do we have at number 17? Lance Storm, the Iceman, one of the greatest unsung wrestlers in history. No frills, no gimmicks, no jokes, just action. I think he'd pair well with Primeape. I mean, Primeape is a fighting type that was often overlooked but has an understated presence, kinda like Storm. Plus, I think Storm's Iceman demeanor would really help with Primeape's temper. Hell, I mean, the guy is a wrestling teacher now. Maybe they would have like a cool teacher-student relationship. You know how I said Hogan was the biggest star to ever come out of wrestling? Well, that's only because he did everything he could to bury the man who could have outshone him, and all these years later, Macho is still vying to be the most recognizable performer in wrestling history. Macho Man Randy Savage is what you would get if you engineered the perfect wrestler. A high flyer, a powerhouse. He could call it in the ring. He could plan out a match to a T. He was a perfect babyface, he was a vile heel, his promos are wholly unique, his fashion was his own, and, oh yeah, he's at the heart of one of the greatest love stories in wrestling history. It took 8 years to tell the slow story of Randy Savage and his manager Miss Elizabeth growing close, Randy pushing her away, her saving him from his demons, and then they fall in love. It's as close to heartwarming as this era of wrestling ever got. What were we talking about? Oh, yeah, Pokemon. Give him Gliscor. Gliscor's pose is similar to Macho, and his poncho. Like, Macho, Gliscor's deadly in the air and on the ground. Both are exceptionally powerful. Both got overshadowed by someone in their generation. Look, I'm just saying, Macho hated Hogan, and a part of me really thinks Gliscor has probably thought about bumping off Garchomp at this point. On the subject of Macho, the first time I ever saw Randy Savage wrestle, it was when he was rocking the NWO black and white. And when you're NWO for life, just as big sexy Kevin Nash. Now, I really struggled to figure out which Pokemon Nash and his tag team partner, Scott Hall, would have. Then I realized the New World Order were invaders, characters from an outside universe coming into WCW, kinda like how Ultra Beasts are Pokemon invading the main timeline. And for the Big Daddy Cool, I'd give him Naganeedle. Sure, Nash is huge, he's powerful, but the deadliest thing about him is his brain. He has played the game better than almost anyone, and has already made a counter for your move before you even made it. Naganeedle is a gigantic Pokemon, and his poison-type nature matches the venomous mind of the former Diesel. Also, both are just really cool and I like them. Scott Hall is on my Mount Rushmore for wrestling. I adore this man. It was hard to not just give him one of my favorite Pokemon, but I think he, just like Nash, really needs an Ultra Beast. Scott Hall was powerful and quick. He may not have been a master planner, but nobody played a goon, or a bad guy, like him. I'd say give him Buzzwole, and just watch them overpower anything that goes near them. At 21, we have one of the true good guys of wrestling. It's him, it's Diamond Dallas Page. He has some of the best matches ever. He was one of the only WCW bastions who could fight back against the New World Order, and he was the first to call himself the People's Champion. Suck it, Rock. After wrestling, Page started DDP Yoga, an exercise routine that has improved the lives of countless people who needed a specialized exercise regimen but couldn't afford a personal trainer. Page has saved the lives of countless wrestlers. Mick Foley is able to move comfortably again, Jake Roberts has been sober for years, and Scott Hall was able to spend his final years enjoying the legacy he built, all thanks to the charity and support of DDP. To me, Page would absolutely have a Blissey. Blissey is a Pokemon who makes the lives of everyone around them better, and is a nurse, someone who makes you healthy and keeps you that way. It's a perfect parent. Wrestling has more than one royal family, and Cody Rhodes is here for his throne. I love Cody. I loved him in WWE, I loved him in Ring of Honor, I loved him with the NWA belt, I loved him in New Japan. He was one of the only reasons I watched AEW in the beginning, and he's my favorite actor in WWE today. He has had my favorite cage match in a decade, and I lost it when he won the Rumble this year, which immediately dates this video, but hey, why not? When I think of Cody, I think of a hero's journey. Kind of like Journey to the West? It may seem hokey, but I just could see Cody partnering with an Infernape. Cody has total main character energy, so he should get a starter, and his Infernape's temper and determination perfectly match Cody's. There's also the similarity to Ash's Infernape being overlooked by Paul, cast aside, and becoming more powerful out of a desire to prove itself, which is basically the story of Cody's career by now. Hell, their bullies are both called Paul. Talking about the Royal Rumble, it feels like everyone finally sees the awesomeness of Gunther. The man is the most legitimately scary wrestler I've seen in years, and he feels like he could chop through steel beams. To me, Tauros is the perfect Pokemon for Gunther. Both are known for their stamina and resistance, and are dominant threats in their respective universes. Personally, I'd give Gunther's Tauros Classic, but a fighting-type Paldea Tauros would work just as well for the duo. Do not get me started on the water or fire types, I still haven't been able to catch one, and yes, I am mad about it. Yeah, this section of the video is basically just Royal Rumble fluff. Rhea is my favorite women's act in WWE, so I had a night where two of my favorite wrestlers got to win their Rumbles, and my other favorites all seem to have good showings, so I can't quite complain about the Rumble. But getting back to Rhea Ripley, her medal appearance, and let's be honest here, leadership of Judgment Day really brings Gothitelle to mind. Both are powerful characters who play mind games with friend and foe alike, and Gothitelle already kind of is wearing the Judgment Day colors. Alright, 25. Who do we got? Cesaro, Breloom. Cesaro surprisingly strong. Breloom surprisingly strong. Cesaro and Breloom friends. At 26, we have my absolute favorite wrestler of all time, Bret Hart. And it was extremely hard to figure out who he should be partnered with. When I think Bret, I think of someone who combines skill and logic. Methodical, yet powerful. He kills you not with sheer force, but by 1,000 cuts. This serious persona, as well as his connection to his family, pointed me to just one Pokemon, Hitmonlee. Hitmonlee's stoicism and martial arts perfectly mirror Bret. Plus, I feel his piercing eyes are a great foil to Bret's shades. Hell, they both do the badass armfold pose. I mean, it's meant to be. Of course, you can't talk Bret without mentioning the rest of the Hearts, now can you? Owen Hart, the King of Hearts, forever trapped in Bret's shadow and rebelling as a result. To me, Owen is the greatest what-if in wrestling history. As much as I love Bret, I think Owen could have far outshow his brother in time if he was given the spotlight. Owen was a more complete package and had a wonderful character to boot. So you look at Owen, and you get younger brother energy mixed with being solid in every area. If Bret got a Hitmonlee, I'd say Owen should have a Hitmontop. Hitmontop is far more balanced than the rest of the Hitmon trio, but is also much shorter and younger looking. I think Hitmontop would be the perfect sidekick to Owen, who was himself outraged by being treated like a sidekick. Jim the Anvil Neidhart is almost like the key to the Hart family. He was Bret's tag team partner, acting as the muscle to Bret's skill, before briefly becoming Owen's partner. When Jim left the company, that short-lived tag team with Owen became core to Owen's complex. Though never given as much of a platform, Jim is the third most important member of the Hart family in my eyes, especially with the sheer intimidation factor. Due to being the original partner to Bret and having less popularity on the whole, as well as his tougher nature, Hitmonchan would be perfect for the Anvil. It completes the trio, and I honestly don't think there's a trio of wrestlers that match up so perfectly to this particular family of Pokemon. Number 29 is just perfect. Everything Kurt Hennig did was absolutely perfect. Offense, perfect. Selling, perfect. Promos, perfect. This guy was so disgustingly good at wrestling, they gave him a character where if he ever messed up, even slightly, he'd lose all credibility. In an era where the biggest stars were the physically biggest ones, Perfect became an icon because he could work circles around almost everyone, and he ushered in the path for men like Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, and Mick Foley to go up the card. It's hard to think, but Perfect, alongside the wrestlers like Dynamite Kid, began to chip away at the land of the giants. Mr. Perfect needs a Pokemon who can hit hard, hit fast, and never miss a step, just like him. Well, why not give him Gallade? Gallade is an egalitarian Pokemon with a night motif, and that would be perfectly at home by Perfect's side, that sense of arrogance, but also superiority that has been earned even though they're smug about it. We just hit number 30, and I think it's time we talk about another major star. If you ask most people who the greatest wrestler in ring was, they'd answer Shawn Michaels. He could be asleep and still have a great match, and according to some stories, he was basically out cold during some of those fights. Now, Shawn is a complex man with two legacies, the hot-headed bully of the 90s and the repentant professional of the 2000s. Not to undercut the man he is today, but when I think of Shawn, I still think of him chewing gum and smirking, being sprawled out on the bed of the Heartbreak Hotel. For him, I want a Pokemon that drips arrogance and pride. So, Heartbreak Kid, I'd give you Superior. Both are haughty and quick characters, and there's the fact that Shawn has a snake tattoo on his arm. It's almost too good to pass up. Yeah, we might as well just do DX while we're here. China. China is one of the most interesting people to learn about in wrestling, at least to me. It seems like I'm always learning something new about her, or how people felt about her, or possible plans, or what could have been. Her nickname, the 9th Wonder of the World, was a reference to Andre the Giant, the 8th Wonder. And like Andre, she's still someone just surrounded by mystique and almost mysticism. China is a peak physicality. She's a statuesque powerhouse, and I think her Pokemon should be similar. Feminine, while also intimidating. Nidoqueen would be perfect. Great typing, a lasting legacy, and, most importantly to me, Nidoqueen is similar to China in that they're a distinctly female Pokemon that breaks the mold of being cutesy or underpowered. Let's round out the original D-Generation X with the King of Kings, Triple H. Triple H won the game. He came into WWE as a jobber, proved himself to be an incredible wrestler, has an amazing mind for the business, and he is now sitting atop his throne, making WWE the best wrestling show on the planet after a 2-decade nadir. When I think of Triple H, I think of a powerful authority. There's also his connection to Ric Flair, making me think that there's something of a parallel between their partners. So my answer? Kommo-o. A pseudo-legendary dragon type, Kommo-o has the same base stat total and typing to Dragonite, but feels like a more brutal and modern take on the same formula. Kinda like how Triple H felt like a modern take on the Ric Flair character in the early 2000s. There's also the fact that Kommo-o looks highly similar to the ceremonial armor Triple H has worn to many WrestleManias. In spirit, in power, in design, and even weirdly enough in color layout. Triple H and Kommo-o would be ideal as a pair. Oh, Jesus Christ, we're only a third of the way through. Okay, Samoa Joe. Crabrawler. I don't know, man. I mean, they kind of look alike. They both look like they would kill you. 34, Mark Henry. Okay, Mark Henry, Hall of Pain, strongest man in the world. I'm legitimately scared that he could kill me just by looking at me. We need to give him a monster. Why not Tyrantrum? So, hear me out, right? I just think they're both really scary. Oh hey, it's William Regal. I don't know, give him Boltund. Why not? They're both from England. Okay, I can't be even somewhat goofy with this one. When I first saw Dean Ambrose as a teenager, I was in love with him. He was my favorite babyface in WWE for years. So imagine my shock when I found out that was probably the worst era of his career. Mox is everything a main eventer should be. He's believable. His character is engaging and consistent. He can wrestle with ease, and he has a major crossover appeal. I also love his real-life story. The boy who grew up in a poor, broken home, worked as a janitor to get himself through wrestling school, and was able to work through tragedy after tragedy. There's only one Pokemon who I think can mirror Moxley's toughness and perseverance, Marowak. Mox and Marowak just look right together, especially when you take into account their similar stories of tragedy and overcoming. Alright, I may be a dick for saying this, but when I see Jay Lethal, I still just think of him being Black Machismo. I mean, the dude was Macho Man Reborn, and if Macho gets a Gliscor, I guess Jay Lethal gets a Gligar. Okay, you remember how I said Samoa Joe and Mark Henry scared me? Nick Gage is the single wrestler I'd least want to meet in an alley. He's the leader of the Death Murder Kill Gang, the king of the deathmatch, and he's just really freaking scary. This guy has died in the ring, was revived in the helicopter on the way to the hospital, and is still trying to kill people with light tubes. Hell, he tried to cut Moxley's tongue out of his mouth with a pizza cutter. Screw it, give the Psycho Weevil. They're perfect for each other. At number 39, we have Jake the Snake Roberts. He is the man. Still my favorite talker in wrestling history. I've spent hours listening to his promos to get inspiration for writing or his acting as a villain. With that chilling gaze, his calm yet sadistic voice, and that ever-present sense of danger when he carried his snake Damien to the ring, Jake is probably my second or third favorite wrestler of all time. We already know that Jake should have, well, a snake, and there's only one Pokemon snake who I think is on Jake's level, Arbok. Arbok is a vengeful, sadistic Pokemon whose toxic can kill most creatures. There's also the fact that it's a Cobra, and Jake's second snake, Lucifer, was also a Cobra. Even their colors work well together. Jake often wore purple or black tights, and Arbok is, well, purple and black. Middle-aged and crazy, Terry Funk is the quintessential American grandpa. Soft-spoken and polite, he's been wrestling for 50 years and has spent 30 of those years as a hardcore icon, lighting people, including himself, on fire, fighting in glass, and getting bloodied up at an age most people go to sleep at 8 p.m. Like Jake, there is a perfect partner for Terry, Drampa. An often forgotten Alolan Pokemon, Drampa is a dragon who looks like a kindly old man, and is also noted to burn down the houses of bullies. Oh god, it's time to do another set of wrestlers, isn't it? Okay. Mankind, the second face of Mick Foley, is also the face of Foley most people think of when they think of Mick Foley. Can I say Mick Foley anymore? When I think of Mankind, I think of him hanging out in a boiler room, often cast in shadow. And yet I also think of the man who openly cries about not being able to play with his children due to the pain he's in. The man who was willing to give everything he had for the fans who let him live his dream. The man who held up his championship belt and wanted to share that moment with his family. He's a creature of the dark, but a benevolent family man all the same. When I think Mankind, I think darkness, and yet also some hope. We're going to do all the faces of Foley, and it was important to me that their partners would be friendship evolutions, to reflect how Mick is such a good human being. Then I realized, for a man who has so many different characters, seriously, there are 6 distinct faces of Foley, he should partner with Pokemon who have a similar theme of shared origin, different face. Foley should only have evolutions, and Mankind in particular should have Umbreon. Umbreon is a bulky, intimidating evolution who evolves at night, and since Jack spends all of his time in darkness, it makes sense that his partner would be an Umbreon. There's also the fact that Umbreon's greatest stat is special defense. The greatest spot in Mankind's career was falling from the top of the cell twice in one match, and both times crawling up the gurney so that he could finish the match. All Foleys are tough, but Mankind has always felt like the toughest to me as a fan. Umbreon's connection to the night, friendship, and strong defense all match perfectly with Mankind. Okay, I might be a hipster, daddy-o, but this hip cat rolls with the summer of love, baby. I know this isn't a popular opinion, but Dude Love is probably my favorite face of Foley, mostly because you could tell Mick was having so much fun playing this character he made as a kid. Sure, he was goofy and was treated as a joke compared to Mankind and Cactus Jack, but Dude Love was still unlike anything else in wrestling at the time, and Mick played the lovable coward role like no one else. Dude Love was, well, all about love and general hippie vibes. His evolution has to be Sylveon. Both are known for their abilities to bring friendship to people. The colorful Sylveon wouldn't look too out of place alongside Dude Love, and screw it, my favorite Mick Foley also gets my favorite evolution. I don't care. My list. At number 43, I think it's time we talk about the first and also last face of Foley. Cactus Jack was Mick's first major character, but was the last one to appear on WWE TV, which I guess makes him the last one, but the point is, once Cactus was there, he was always treated like a force of nature, a being of pure hatred and pain who, win or lose, would make you hurt. His wars with Triple H, Randy Orton, Edge, and Terry Funk as Cactus Jack more than proved that this was the persona Foley would use if he needed to sink his teeth into something. To me, he would totally have an Espeon. Cactus Jack often hid weapons under the ring, and would go into his matches with a plan, unlike Mankind and Dude Love. Though never an outright genius, Cactus was played up to seemingly be more intelligent than the other faces, if this is just his technique to bring him harm. Moreover, Cactus was always more on the offense, often getting in the first hit in his matches. This smarter reputation and high attack stat really makes a great partnering for Espeon. There's also the fact that Out of all the evolutions, Espeon plays an antagonistic role the most often. In Pokemon Heroes, the villains make use of an Espeon. In Generation 2, Red, your final challenge, has an Espeon. In many Pokedexes, Espeon is paid off to be somewhat haughty towards people. Though never treated as evil, Espeon is treated as more of a bully than any other members of the Eevee family, which just makes it more of a match for the more destructive face of Foley. Also, I know this is top 100 wrestlers, 100 Pokemon, but let's just knock out the other faces of Foley real quick. Why are you complaining? It's a bonus for you. Alongside Mankind, Dude, and Cactus, there's El Comistorino, Santa, and actual McFoley, who weirdly has always been treated as a distinct face, don't ask me. El Comistorino, who would often appear out of nowhere backstage in order to act as the boss of Raw, would have the equally quick Jolteon. Santa would have Glaceon because, you know, snow. And finally, Mick Foley, as the person that all these personas emerge from, would have a partner, Eve. Look, you know who The Rock is. He's the Brahma Bull, he has the bull tattoo, give him a Bouffalant. Why Bouffalant? Because Unova is America and Bouffalant looks more like a Brahma Bull than Tauros does. I don't know. Oh, come on, it's another grouping. Okay, New Day. Kofi Kingston, more than anything else, is an agile wrestler. Save for a few hiccups, he's made a yearly tradition of escaping elimination in the Royal Rumble in innovative fashion. Grapplelock's ability may be more related to, well, grappling. But I think this pairing is still solid enough, and also, I don't know, Kofi Kingston's like a superhero. Grapplelock is literally a superhero. Continuing with the New Day, Big E is a big guy with a big smile and a big sense of humor. He's such a cutie. Why not give him Machoke? I think Machamp might be a bit too intimidating to match Big E's silliness, but I think little brother Machoke still exudes enough power to be intimidating, while also having a softer design and a more, shall we say, goofy face. You know Xavier Woods is a literal doctor in children's psychology? I feel like that's never brought up, but yeah, he has a doctorate. Also, I think he should have a Rotom. Rotom would just help him with up, up, down, down. He's a phone, you know. At number 48, we have the head of the table, and still the biggest monster in wrestling. For Roman Reigns, we need someone who can be just as much as a dominant force as this intimidating presence. I think giving him a pseudo-legendary to the longest-lasting world champion in modern wrestling history is a no-brainer, and none can carry quite as much weight to me as Tyranitar. Okay, people on Twitter are gonna probably get pissed off at me. This isn't a diss. I swear to God it's not a diss, just hear me out. I think Kevin Owens would have a Perugly. Both have Street Fighter vibes, but more importantly, both are incredibly fast while having stocky builds. I think that's the major parallel that unites them for me. And also, if you're going to tell me Kevin Owens doesn't love watching cat videos, I'm going to say you're full of it. This guy totally loves cats. Jesus Christ, we're only at number 50. Okay, so we're talking about Stone Cold Steve Austin. I love the Texas Rattlesnake. It's taken a long time for me to actually kind of get his character, but now as a grown adult, he's one of the wrestlers I love going back to the most. And when I think of Stone Cold, sure, you could think of the beer, you could think of the finger, you could think of so many things, but to me, I just think of disgruntled. Like, he was just grumpy. When I think of him, I think we need to give him a major powerhouse who has a huge presence within the history and the meta of Pokemon, but is also grumpy. Basically what I'm saying is give him Garchomp. Just like Stone Cold, Garchomp is a tour de force within Pokemon. It's still hard to find ways to counteract a good Garchomp. And there's also the fact that you have Stone Cold, so you have a rock and a ground connection. Garchomp is also ground, and also, I just think they would both be grumpy old men, like sitting at a diner, just waiting for the day to end. And that mental image alone makes me think that Stone Cold should have a Garchomp. Suicidal, homicidal, genocidal, unemployable. I love Sabu. I've recently gone back to watch a lot of ECW, and Sabu is just amazing. Granted, he would hurt himself and just about everyone else all the time, but dude, he seems real. He still really scares me. Like, I know that, you know, kayfabe's dead, but Sabu still feels like he would probably kill you. What I'm saying is, I think we should give him a Selgor. This is another one that sounds like a diss, but just hear me out. I do not mean it as a diss, I mean it as the absolute most glowing praise I can provide. Chris Kanyon is one of the greatest missed opportunities in wrestling. This guy was a worker. Every Chris Kanyon match, he did his absolute best, and it shows. I love this guy, and I hate that he never got a real bite at the apple. I think he should have a Magikarp. And I'm not saying that because he's a jobber, I'm not saying that because he's weak, I'm saying that because Magikarp has the potential to turn into a Gyarados. He has the potential to reach the next level. Just like how I think Kanyon had all the potential in the world, but was never able to make use of it. Look, just give Raven a Corviknight. It's a Raven! Okay, RVD. I love Rob Van Dam. He's the best. He's one of my favorite wrestlers ever. I still love his match with Cena at One Night Stand. I love his toys. He's getting Weed Cat. I'm sorry. When I see RVD, I think 420. We're giving him Sprigatito. This is my video. Yeah. Holy shit, it's Shark Boy. You remember Shark Boy? I do. I love him. Give him Gibble. There, we have two Shark Boys together. Okay, I can't keep making jokes. Gail Kim legitimately made a case for women's wrestling when no major American company wanted to give it the time of day. When WWE was hiring lingerie models to be their women wrestlers, Gail Kim was putting on 5-star matches every night. For some reason, Metacham just seems to fit well with her. I think it's something about the, steely determination. Oh. Bruce the Barber Beefcake's on the list. He gets Magmar, just worse Charizard. You don't suck. You don't suck. You don't suck. Yeah, it's Kurt Angle. Love him. He's the best. Giving him Armor Rouge. No particular reason. Just two, most obvious good guys ever, but probably bad guys. It works. Don't question me. It's Cowboy James Storm. I love this guy. He's one of my favorite wrestlers ever. He's probably my favorite TNA original. Give him a Mudsdale. Cowboy. Okay, everything I said about Gail Kim? Well, repeat, copy, paste for Molly Holly. Only I'd argue Molly Holly had it worse because Gail Kim at least could have pointed to Molly Holly and other wrestlers like Alundra Blaze and Bull Nakano to say, see, there are serious women wrestlers. Molly Holly could only point to people like Moolah. And no one wants to point to Moolah. She sucks. Great women's wrestler. Definitely deserves her place in the Hall of Fame. Give her a Tinkaton. Both are kind of bubbly and cute. Both could definitely murder you. Why not? Her cousin, though, but not real cousin, just fake cousin, kayfabe cousin, Hardcore Holly, give him an Ursa Ring. Granted, both are serious, both are grumpy, but the real reason I'm giving him an Ursa Ring is because Hardcore Holly in his autobiography claimed that he fought an actual bear, and that's the reason he's bald, is because the bear bit him on the head. I'm not messing with you guys. He claims that he basically had a cocaine bear encounter in real life, and he won. Oh, Jesus Christ, it's the Bork Laser. Okay, Brock Lesnar scares me. Not as much as someone like, I don't know, Nick Gage does, but that's because I think Nick Gage would murder me. Brock Lesnar would murder me, but probably in a way where he'd get away with it, so I probably wouldn't suffer that much. Point is, I think he gets Excalibur. I think pseudo-legendaries going to scary guys makes a lot of sense, and Excalibur is Godzilla. Brock Lesnar, if you're going to tell me this isn't what Godzilla would look like if he was a human being, I don't know if I could trust you. But also, I don't know, it works. Kane, Hell's favorite demon, a wrestler whose entire legacy was built on the first 4 years of this character before he shit the bed, and we've all just kind of ignored the rest of his career and post-wrestling career and awful tweets. Look, we're just gonna give him Skeledirge, okay? Guy who likes fire, alligator who likes fire. What possibly could go wrong? Well, it's the Big Show. Yeah, I think we need to give him someone kind of big, kind of lumbering. Give him a Nidoking. Why? Because I love Big Show, but God, he needs something colorful, and Nidoking is just a glorious mountain of purple. Of course, if we're going to talk about Big Show, we might as well talk about his dad, at least in kayfabe, Andre the Giant. This guy is entirely presence. Was he the best worker, especially later on in his WWE run when most of his fame really got solidified? No, but he didn't have to be. The guy was a monster. He could eat you alive. I think we need to give him a Pokemon who is unbelievably powerful, but also a bit slow. Why not a Slaking? Slaking has Truant. He literally can't move but every other turn, and that kind of feels very on point for Andre. Oh my god, it's my boy, King Mabel. I love this guy. He sucks, but he's amazing, and apparently the real guy was really cool. Love him. Give him a Lola Muck. Just big purple trash bags. They can go solve mysteries. Yokozuna's whole gimmick was that the more he ate and the fatter he became, the more powerful he got. It was really fun until it became really sad. Yeah, just give him Snorlax. There's no jokes. He died. Oh, look, it's Kevin Sullivan. Now, this guy is nothing but jokes. He's super funny. I love him as the Taskmaster. I loved him in the Dungeon of Doom. All of his booking stuff is so weird. Not necessarily good, but it's so weird. Give him Sableye. Both of these are just kind of like money-grubbing demons. And I'm not talking about characters here. Okay, I know the joke is that John Cena wins all the time, but Edge is literally the wrestler with the most championships in history. He is the most winningest wrestler ever. We need to give Edge a pretty top-tier guy. You gotta think, Edge is a vampire. So why not we go full Twilight with this? I'm talking werewolves and vampires. You better believe I want to give him Lycanroc Midnight. Why? Well, because my favorite parts of Edge is when he was a villain and when he was kind of scary, intimidating, and he really leaned into the vampire horror elements. You gotta remember, this is a guy who, while he was a good guy, tried to murder Paul Bearer on screen multiple times. Just give him the Lycanroc. Talking of Edge, we might as well talk about his former stable before he got kicked out, and Finn Balor. I adore Finn Balor, and I really miss the Demon King. I hope the rumors of the Demon King coming back are true, because imagine a Judgment Day that had Demon Finn Balor in it. It would be amazing. But I also think the fact that Finn and the Demon were always treated as two distinct personalities and characters really brings to mind more Pico. I think it works well enough, just the whole Jekyll and Hyde dynamic, and I would like to think that full belly Morpeko would hang out with Finn, and half belly would hang out with the Demon. It just kind of makes sense. Or, actually, you know what? Scratch that. You give half belly to Finn, so then Finn's like the straight man, but then when Finn loses it, that's when full belly comes out, and he's like the morality chain of the Demon. God, I should be a booker at WWE. You know where to get me, Triple H. Okay, I have John Morrison written down on the list. Give him Crocodile. I don't know, they both seem like swingers. They both wear sunglasses. Look, not all of these are going to be winners, okay? Oh my god, it's Sting! Also, I just want to say this right now, Sting is amazing. I love him. He's one of the best wrestlers and most legendary performers of all time. But I also need to sneak in a little jab here, because one of my very good friends, Jonathan, loves Sting. So from this point on, I'm going to be talking about him as though he sucks, but he doesn't actually. So Sting, everyone can agree, is an unbelievably overrated, sucky wrestler that only idiots named Jonathan like. Only stinky, smelly losers like stinky, smelly Sting. Give him Lucario. Real talk though, I think it works because Lucario's a loner, Sting is a loner. Both are like seen as these bastions of justice within their respective universes. I also kind of like the idea of they're a little bit edgy and goofy because of the edginess, but they're also still believable. They're just as much DeviantArt OC as they are well-written, well-loved characters. Let's move from Sting to his best friend, Lex Luger. I like Luger. I think he's great. If I had to give him a Pokemon, I think you have to give him Machamp. Because Lex Luger's whole thing is he's 4% body fat. Look at Machamp, right? Machamp just is Lex Luger as a Pokemon. He's massive and muscular, and I feel like Vince McMahon probably has a picture of him somewhere under his desk. I guess this is also a grouping. Luger was a member of the Four Horsemen. Sting was a member of the Four Horsemen. We already talked about Rick, so why don't we get a fourth horseman in there? Quite frankly, my favorite horseman is Arn Anderson. He's just so good. Every time I see him show up on a wrestling show or pay-per-view, I can't contain myself, because I know it's going to be awesome, or he's going to be awesome at the very least. When I think of Arn Anderson, I think of underappreciated. I think of the fact that this is a guy who could have been a cornerstone anywhere, and yet he was content to kind of be in the background and just do his thing. I think you give him Venusaur. Venusaur, of the original 3 starters, is easily the least loved and the least represented, and yet is probably the most well-balanced and stable. That kind of sums Arn up to a T, especially in comparison to wrestlers like Ric Flair, Luger, and Sting. So yeah, I think Venusaur Anderson, that works. Okay, I'm going to keep the Goldberg one short just because I'm legitimately worried that if it goes on for too long, he'll find a way to injure me. We're giving him Haxorus. Why? Because the spear is Goldberg's thing, and if Haxorus gave you a spear, he'd probably kill you. Okay, no jokes here. Bobby Eaton is the single greatest tag team wrestler of all time. He was phenomenal. He was a great member of the Midnight Express. He had an amazing tag team with Arn Anderson. I love to go back and just rediscover stuff about him. I didn't realize he had a tag team with William Regal until recently. They were the Blue Bloods together. Turns out it was amazing, because of course it was amazing. But when I think of Bobby Eaton, right, you have to have someone who's almost surgical in the way he gets in, gets his licks, and then retreats. That's why I go Excadrill. Someone who hits hard, hits fast, can get out of the way. Dean Malenko's amazing just because every time I watch a match, I'm kind of tepid, and then he just completely wins you over. Like, Dean Malenko is the absolute definition of not flashy, but spectacular all the same. I think you need to give him someone who can set up, will take you down through 1,000 cuts as opposed to a knockout punch, and is equally reliable despite being a little bit of a B-lister. That's why I say give Malenko Roserade. I think giving a status Pokemon to Malenko makes all the sense in the world because you have the tactical overlap. There's also just the fact that, you know, I like Roserade, I like Dean Malenko. I really struggled to figure out who Booker T should have. It kind of came to me he should just have Electabuzz, and I don't really have a reason for it other than just I think they would look good together. Yeah, I don't have a better reason than that. I just imagined Booker T and Electabuzz, and it's like, those fit. Have them do Spinneroonies together, why not? I love myself some Sensational Sherry. She's one of my absolute favorite managers, and when I think of her, I think of Toxin. I think of her slowly poisoning the mind of her clients. I think we need to give her a toxic Pokemon, so why not Vileplume? They even kind of color coordinate. Alright, we are at the home stretch. We are at number 80 with Mike Awesome. And Awesome is his name. Awesome is his claim. Awesome was his game. Going back and rewatching ECW from 2099, it just gave me a whole new appreciation of Mike Awesome. This guy was unlike any other big man I've ever seen in pro wrestling. And I think I need to give him someone who is huge, but can be deceptively quick. And that's why I landed on Graveler. And a lot of it comes from things like the self-destruct, the explosion, these high-risk things, because Mike Awesome was a high-risk wrestler. I think it could really work out, and also, I don't know, Mike Awesome gives me Brock vibes. I feel like he needs a rock type. 81 is my second favorite wrestler of all time, and he was my childhood favorite, Eddie Guerrero. Eddie, more so than any pro wrestler I can think of, is the story of redemption, of getting a second chance, and making the most out of it. This is a guy who conquered all his demons, won the biggest title in his industry, was beloved, embraced by the fans, and yet he was still taken from us so early. Even though he had gotten clean, complications led to his unfortunate passing. But it's that redemption that makes Eddie Guerrero one of the best of all time. And I think it's why we'll never forget Eddie, is because that ability to turn your life around, it resonates more so than any wrestling storyline could. Eddie was real, and he let us be a part of his life. That idea of getting a new lease on life as a Pokemon, I think, is Lapras. Lapras is a Pokemon that nearly went extinct, but now they're plentiful again in the Pokemon world. I really love this parallel of a human and a Pokemon, both of whom may have been born in bad situations, now have an entirely new path that they can undertake together. And that's why I think they would be the best possible pairing for each other. Okay, that's a bit too deep for a video like this. Bubba Ray Dudley's a dick, but he also runs away because he's a coward. That's why I give him Colossopod, who's a monster, whose whole gimmick is they run away. I got my big sideburns and my hair slicked back. I'm coming to your town in a pink Cadillac. You see, that's the whole reason Honky Tonk Man, who is an Elvis impersonator, should have Revel Room. It's a pink Cadillac. It's in his song. He's coming to your town in a pink Cadillac. I don't see what the discussion is here. Rowdy Roddy Piper loud. Exploud loud. Rowdy Roddy Piper and Exploud friends. Yeah, I have Iron Sheik and Mudkip paired up here. You wanna know the real reason? I could BS one right now. No. It's because they're both memes, and I love them. We've talked about some of the real good guys in pro wrestling. You know, we've talked about Mick Foley, DDP, Eddie Guerrero, Asuka, all the New Day. Let's talk about another one with John Tenta, who, to this day, it just warms my heart to see just how appreciative of the fans he was. And you hear all these amazing stories of Earthquake, and you get to see he was as good a human being he was just as good a wrestler. And I want to also go into the fact that he is a legit sumo wrestler. He was never a Yokozuna level, but he was accomplished in the sport. I think Makuhita makes a lot of sense for him. Give a sumo wrestler, I didn't even mean that pun. Give a sumo wrestler with a sumo Pokemon. It makes sense. Yeah, I think we should just give Ultimate Warrior a Wailord, and if you ask why, it's because they look big and impressive, but they can't take any hits, and let's be honest, a whole lot of the reason people like them is just their appearance and nothing else. But hey, if we're going to talk about Warrior, we might as well talk about Rick Rude. I love the Ravishing one. I want to give him a Pokemon who's just as sneaky and sinister, someone who you could see forming a plot to take you from behind in the shadows. Basically, I'm saying we should give Rick Rude a Liepard. I love John Cena. Like, I'm a kid of the 2000s. For a long time in my early wrestling fandom, John Cena was the perennial champ. And yeah, I still love John Cena. He's like the best human. I want to meet him so badly. Mostly because I would like to think he's my dad. John Cena, can you be my papa? Papa Cena? Look, the point is, if we're taking wrestlers who have main character energy, which, let's be honest, this is John Cena's world, we're all just living in it, I think that we need to give him a starter. And when I think John Cena, who do we give him as a starter? Well, if we give Hogan Charizard, I think we give John Cena Blastoise. John Cena is a little bit stockier, a little bit shorter, but he's also a lot more defensive. He's not always on the attack the way Hogan was. And also, I just really like Blastoise, and I really like John Cena. And I liked them both when I was a kid and didn't have a dad. Can John Cena and Blastoise both be my dad? Shinsuke Nakamura is amazing, and I'm not going to try to go into detail about all the amazing things he's done over his career. Just go and watch some of his matches. He's spectacular, but also he's a surfer, and I think he loves surfing more than he loves wrestling. Give him a Lowland Raichu. Just two surfing buddies. They can go hang out on a beach together. We are in the final 10. Can you believe it? It feels like we just started this video 2 hours ago. Jesus Christ, I hope this isn't a 2-hour video. But, haha, yes, we have The Miz. And I think The Miz should have Inteleon. And the reason why is his whole gimmick is the fact that he is a movie star. You see him in the suits, you see him looking sharp and debonair. Inteleon just makes sense, like the kind of James Bond vibe, and also the fact that they both just smirk all the time. Look, not all these are going to be winners. Daniel Bryan, or Bryan Danielson, no matter what you want to call him, he is yet another one of the good guys of pro wrestling. An amazing human being who I honestly wish I could model my life to be more like, because even aside from his character, he just seems like such a good dude. I think we should give him Kingdra. Like, you take the American Dragon, give him an Ocean Dragon. You take someone who will kill you by death of 1,000 cuts, give him a Pokemon who, while and also a powerhouse, also has a lot of good technical usability. I think it makes sense. Oh look, it's CM Punk. We are not mentioning the backstage fight. I just mentioned the backstage fight. It's okay. I think we should give him a Smeargle. Why? Because CM Punk's whole character is he's from Chicago, and Smeargle also just feels like he's from Chicago. Look me in the eye and tell me it doesn't feel like Smeargle isn't the Banksy of the Pokemon universe. I could say a lot about AJ Styles. I could say that he's a phenomenal wrestler. I could say that he's one of the best to ever lace a pair of boots. I could bring up the fact that I've actually met him and it was cool. But no, AJ Styles is from Georgia, and in Georgia, we like our Bulldogs. Yeah, basically there's a college football team called the Georgia Bulldogs. For a lot of people in Georgia, their whole personality is, I like the Bulldogs, so I'm going to give him a Bulldog. AJ Styles, you get a Snubble. Take it. I adore Bayley, especially now that she's a heel. Granted, I think that she could have been the biggest star on the planet if Vince didn't, well, Vince it up, as he always did. But still, Bayley is such a phenomenal performer. She's able to pull off basically anything. And I'm trying to think, who can we give to Bayley? And with her as a heel, I think of this very slimy character. Very manipulative and calculating. Salazzle just makes a lot of sense. And I really think a lot of it just comes down to color scheme. I think you take Bayley, who's typically dark blue or some brighter colors, mix it with a Pokemon who's mostly black with pink highlights. It's just a very pleasing, balanced color scheme. Final 5. Who's rushing? You? Me? Definitely me. Point is, we're on Rey Mysterio now, and I could go into the fact that Rey Mysterio has been wrestling for 30 years and he's amazing and everyone loves him, and he basically popularized the form of wrestling known as Lucha Libre to American audiences. I could go into all that, but, you know, why do that? I'm just going to give him the Lucha Libre Pokemon. Rey, you get a Hawlucha. You're about the same height as one anyway. Is that Sheamus? Okay, I guess we have Sheamus on the list. I want to say Shuckle. I don't know why, but Sheamus feels like they would have a Shuckle. I'm still stuck on that. Sheamus Shuckle, why not? Oh, it's Seth. I love Seth. You remember that time he saved WrestleMania 31 and broke the heart of Roman Reigns' entire family because no one wanted to tell them what the plan was? I do. I love Seth. He's the best. He's a great face, but holy, what a great heel he is. I love myself a good Seth Rollins heel promo. And there's also the fact that, once again, he just seems like a cool guy. I don't know why. I feel like he'd have a Greninja. Like, don't get me wrong, Seth definitely has main character energy, but I guess we're on this roll now. Like Sheamus Shuckle, I just feel like Seth Rollins and Greninja look right together. Okay, we have done Cody, hey Goldust, I love you. Look at Goldust, he's amazing. Everybody loves Goldust. And you wanna know why? I think it's because he's an unbelievably underrated worker who also has an amazing story of redemption. Or maybe it's the fact that he's androgynous. If you ask Vince, it's the second reason. So yeah, we're gonna give Goldust Primarina. Why? Because Primarina is also androgynous, and I don't know, it just feels like Goldust would like a Primarina. It makes sense. We did it. We're here. Number 100. I was really worried about how long it would take. It seems so insurmountable, but we can actually talk about number 100. And I feel like the only way to finish a list like this off is to talk about possibly the single greatest character ever made for wrestling. Undertaker is the WWE. He is the heart, the soul, the face, the conscience. Everyone loves Taker. And if you don't love Taker, you respect Taker. You respect what he brought to the table. You respect his work. You respect his character. You respect who he is as a human being. You respect the fact that he was able and willing to stand up to Vince and any of the top guys who were trying to hurt the people below them. You respect the fact that everyone, and I mean everyone, who talks about Taker, talks about the fact that his life mission seemed to be to raise everyone up to his level. I love Mark Calloway Undertaker. And when you think of the Dead, you think of iconic, sure. But I also think of the fact this is a guy who went through so many generations of WWE and was always at the front. He was there for Hulkamania. He was there for the New Gen. He was there for Attitude. He was there for the Invasion. He was there for the Ruthless Aggression. He was there for the PG. He was there for the era of the Athlete, for the rise of Roman Reigns. He's always been there. He is the spirit of WrestleMania. You need a Pokemon who's as universally beloved as him, and has had as much staying power, and has a similar flirtation with both the dark and the light side. Not fully evil, but not necessarily good either. I think Undertaker has a Gengar. You look at Gengar, and you have a character who's just as believable as a good Pokemon as a bad Pokemon. There's also the fact that within the Pokemon fandom, I've never met anyone who dislikes Gengar. Now, I'm not necessarily saying Gengar's everyone's favorite. I'm not even saying Gengar's in everyone's top 100 favorites. But I've never met anyone who absolutely hates Gengar. And it's the same case with Taker. I think it's the simple fact of the matter that Gengar and Taker have both always been there. And they've both always been within the top echelons, within the lore, within the fandom, within the skill set, within the storylines. Everything. Gengar and Undertaker, more so than any other pairing on this list, are perfect for each other. I will die on this hill. And if there's nothing else in this video that you can agree with me on, I feel like you would be hard-pressed to argue that Undertaker and Gengar are the perfect wrestler-Pokemon pairing. Well, that was weird. We're still a toy channel, in case anyone's questioning that. I might do editorials in the future because that's what everyone on YouTube does, and currently Congress is trying to get rid of TikTok, so I guess I'm gonna have to figure out if I'm moving or if I'm gonna try to hitch my wagon to TikTok for longer. But the fact of the matter is, this is a video that I still most attribute to those amazing people who have followed me on TikTok. I started making my toy reviews just as a way to have fun, do something during the pandemic, but increasingly it's become one of the major sources of joy in my life. It gives me something to do every day I wake up. I love to see the videos that people really connect with, and even the videos that don't do so well. I like that there's something out there, It feels good to produce something. So, this video is very long in the tooth. I won't stick around and gush for too long, but thank you for 2,000 followers on TikTok. Hopefully, we'll be able to get some followers here on YouTube and build a community here. But in any case, it's been a fun video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope that no one's going to try to kill me in my sleep over these sources. But, I could say it's just a theory, but that's the wrong channel.